What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected young actresses goes head-to-head with a late-night talk show host who thinks he can push anyone around? Well, you're about to find out, because what went down between Zendaya and Jimmy Kimmel, behind the scenes, is absolutely wild. Before we dive into this insane story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this is the kind of drama that will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about late-night television. So picture this. Zendaya walks onto the Jimmy Kimmel live set, looking absolutely stunning as always, wearing this gorgeous emerald green dress that's making everyone on set do double takes. The audience is buzzing with excitement because let's be real, Zendaya appearing on any show is always a big deal. She's been killing it in everything from Spider-Man to Euphoria to Dune, and fans are expecting the usual fun, light-hearted interview where she talks about her latest projects and maybe shares some behind-the-scenes stories. But Jimmy Kimmel had other plans. From the moment Zendaya sat down in that guest chair, something felt off. Instead of the warm welcome most guests get, Jimmy's energy was weird, almost confrontational. He starts off with what seems like a compliment, telling Zendaya how great she looks. But there's this underlying tone that makes everyone uncomfortable. The studio audience can sense it too, because the usual enthusiastic cheering dies down pretty quickly. Then Jimmy drops his first loaded question. He leans back in his chair with that smug expression he gets sometimes and says, "So, Zendaya, I've been wondering something. With all your success lately, do you ever feel like you're just the token diversity hire in these big-budget movies?" The question hangs in the air, like a bomb that's about to explode. The audience goes dead silent. Even the camera operators look shocked. Zendaya's face changes instantly. The warm smile she walked in with disappears, replaced by this look of complete disbelief. You can literally see her processing what just happened. Did Jimmy Kimmel, on live television, just reduce all of her talent, hard work, and achievements to nothing more than checking a diversity box? The tension in the studio becomes so thick you could cut it with a knife. But here's the thing about Zendaya that makes her so incredible. She doesn't lose her cool. Instead, she sits up straighter, looks Jimmy dead in the eye, and says, "Excuse me? Did you just ask me if I think I'm a token hire?" Her voice is calm, but there's steel behind it. Everyone on set realizes they're witnessing something unprecedented. Jimmy tries to backtrack, doing that nervous laugh he does when he knows he messed up. No, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying that Hollywood is really focused on representation right now, and... But Zendaya cuts him off, mid-sentence. "Stop right there, Jimmy. Let me be very clear about something. I have worked my entire life to get where I am. I started as a child performer. I've trained. I've studied. I've put in the work. My talent speaks for itself." The audience starts murmuring. Some people are clapping, but it's scattered and confused, because nobody knows what's happening or how to react. This is supposed to be a fun, late-night talk show, not a debate about racial dynamics in Hollywood. But Jimmy, instead of apologizing and moving on, decides to double down. He leans forward with this condescending expression and says, "Look, I'm not trying to diminish your talent, but you have to admit that being a young black woman in Hollywood right now comes with certain advantages. Studios are desperately trying to appear progressive." The moment those words leave his mouth, you can feel the entire energy of the room shift. Zendaya's publicist, who's standing off to the side, looks like she's about to have a heart attack. The producers in the control room are probably scrambling, trying to figure out how to handle this situation. But Zendaya, she's not backing down. She's not running away. She's about to educate Jimmy Kimmel in front of his own audience. "Advantages?" she repeats, her voice rising slightly. "Jimmy, do you have any idea what it's like to walk into audition rooms where you're automatically seen as filling a quota rather than being there because you're the best person for the job? Do you know what it's like to have people constantly question whether you deserve your success? The audience is completely captivated now. This isn't just entertainment anymore. This is real talk. Jimmy shifts uncomfortably in his seat. He's clearly not prepared for Zendaya to push back this hard. Most celebrities, when they're in uncomfortable situations, just laugh it off and change the subject. But not Zendaya. She continues, "Every role I've ever gotten, I've had to prove myself 10 times over. When I was cast as MJ in Spider-Man. You remember the backlash? Do you remember people saying I wasn't right for the role before they even saw me act?" The studio is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even Jimmy seems to realize he's opened a can of worms he can't close. But instead of gracefully acknowledging his mistake, he makes it worse. "I think you're being a little sensitive here," he says with a dismissive wave of his hand. "I'm just trying to have an honest conversation about the industry." That's when Zendaya's eyes flash with anger. "Sensitive? You just questioned my entire career and suggested I only got my roles because of my race, and I'm being sensitive?" The audience starts to shift. Some people are clearly uncomfortable with Jimmy's behavior. Others are starting to clap in support of Zendaya. Jimmy realizes he's losing control of his own show. His writers probably never prepare jokes or questions for this kind of situation. He tries to regain control by saying, "Okay, let's just calm down and talk about your new movie." But Zendaya isn't having it. "No, Jimmy, you started this conversation, so let's finish it. You want to talk about advantages? Let's talk about the advantage of being a middle-aged white man in entertainment who gets to host a show for years without anyone questioning whether you deserve to be there. Let's talk about the advantage of being able to make thoughtless comments without considering how they might affect the people you're talking to." The audience erupts. Some people are cheering, some are gasping, and you can hear scattered, "Oh, snap," comments from the crowd. Jimmy's face is turning red. He's clearly not used to being challenged like this on his own show. Most guests are just grateful to be there and go along with whatever direction he takes the interview. But Zendaya is different. She's not just another celebrity promoting a project. She's a young woman who has faced real challenges in this industry, and she's not about to let some talk show host diminish her accomplishments for the sake of what he thinks is edgy comedy. The tension continues to build as Jimmy tries one more time to regain control. Jimmy clears his throat and tries to put on his fake television smile, but you can see the sweat starting to form on his forehead. He's realizing that this interview is spiraling completely out of his control. And for someone who's used to being the one asking the questions, having Zendaya flip the script on him is clearly making him panic. "Look, Zendaya," he says, trying to sound authoritative but failing miserably. "I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say here. I'm on your side. I support diversity in Hollywood." But the way he says it sounds so patronizing, like he's doing her some kind of favor by acknowledging her existence. Zendaya tilts her head slightly, and you can see this look in her eyes that says she's about to destroy this man with pure logic. "You support diversity? That's interesting, Jimmy, because your writing staff is almost entirely white men. Your guest list over the past year has been predominantly white. So tell me, what exactly does your support look like in practice?" The audience gasps audibly. Some people start clapping because Zendaya just called out Jimmy with receipts. She's not just defending herself anymore, she's exposing the hypocrisy of his entire show. Jimmy's mouth opens and closes like a fish out of water because he has absolutely no comeback for that. His producers are frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, probably telling him to go to commercial break or change the subject, but Jimmy's ego won't let him back down. Instead, he makes the worst possible decision and decides to get defensive. "That's not fair," he says, his voice getting higher and more strained. "We hire the best people available." We can't just hire people because of their race or gender. The moment those words come out of his mouth, you can feel the entire studio audience turn against him. Even his own staff members are shaking their rocks, heads in disbelief. Zendaya laughs, but it's not a friendly laugh. It's the kind of laugh that means someone is about to get verbally demolished. Oh, so when you hire white men, they're the best people available. But when studios cast black actors, they're just diversity hires? Do you hear yourself right now, Jimmy? The logic is so clear and devastating that even Jimmy seems to realize how ridiculous he sounds. But instead of apologizing, instead of admitting he made a mistake, he doubles down again. I'm just saying that sometimes political correctness goes too far, he says, and you can practically hear the collective groan from everyone in the studio. That's when Zendaya's composure finally cracks, but not in the way Jimmy was hoping. She doesn't get emotional or flustered. Instead, she gets ice cold. Political correctness? Jimmy, what you call political correctness, I call basic human respect. What you call going too far, I call treating people as equals. The audience erupts in applause. People are standing up, cheering, and you can see Jimmy's face getting redder by the second. He's completely lost control of his own show, and everyone in that studio knows it. His monologue writers are probably having emergency meetings, trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. But Jimmy's not done making bad decisions. Maybe it's his bruised ego. Maybe it's panic, but he decides to try a different approach. He leans back in his chair and says, "You know what, Zendaya? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should be more careful about who I have on my show." The threat is implicit, but clear. He's basically saying that if she doesn't tone it down, she won't be welcome back. It's a power play that probably works on a lot of celebrities who depend on these shows for promotion. But Zendaya isn't most celebrities. She stands up slowly, and the entire studio goes silent. Everyone knows something big is about to happen. She looks directly at Jimmy, then at the audience, and says, "Let me tell you something, Jimmy. I don't need your show. I don't need your platform. What I won't do is sit here and let you disrespect me and everyone who looks like me under the guise of entertainment." The audience goes absolutely wild. People are cheering, clapping. Some are even crying because they're witnessing someone stand up for themselves in the most powerful way possible. Jimmy's face has gone from red to pale white because he realizes he just threatened one of the biggest stars in Hollywood on live television. His publicist rushes onto the set, probably trying to do damage control, but Zendaya raises her hand to stop her. "No, I'm not done," she says firmly. She turns back to Jimmy, who's now looking like he wants to disappear into his chair. "You want to know what real diversity looks like, Jimmy? It looks like hiring people because they bring different perspectives, different experiences, different talents to the table. It looks like recognizing that excellence comes in all colors and genders. It looks like understanding that when you give everyone a fair shot, everyone wins." Jimmy tries to interrupt. "Zendaya, I think we're getting off track here." But she's not having it. "No, Jimmy, we're exactly on track. You started this conversation by questioning my worthiness, by suggesting that my success is somehow unearned. But let me ask you something. When was the last time anyone questioned whether you deserved your job? When was the last time someone suggested that you only got your hosting gig because you're a white man?" The question hangs in the air, like a challenge. Jimmy can't answer it because he's never had to face that kind of scrutiny. He's never had to prove himself beyond his initial audition or interview. He's never had people assume he was only hired to fill a quota. The audience is completely captivated. This isn't just an interview anymore. It's a masterclass in standing up for yourself with dignity and intelligence. Zendaya continues, "The difference between us, Jimmy, is that I've had to earn my place at every single table I've ever sat at. You've had your place saved for you since the day you decided you wanted to be in entertainment. Jimmy's trying to think of a response, but everything he could say would just make things worse. He's trapped by his own ignorance and ego. The producers are probably losing their minds in the control room because this is either going to be the most talked about interview in late night history, or it's going to be a complete disaster for their host. That's when Jimmy makes his final fatal mistake. Maybe it's desperation, maybe it's just his true colors showing, but he looks at Zendaya and says, "You know what? If you don't want to be here, nobody's forcing you to stay." The studio goes dead silent. It's the kind of silence that comes right before an explosion. Zendaya stares at him for a long moment, and you can see the exact moment she decides she's done playing games. Zendaya takes a deep breath, and when she speaks, her voice is crystal clear and carries to every corner of that studio. "You're absolutely right, Jimmy. Nobody is forcing me to stay. And you know what? I'm not going to." She starts to remove her microphone, and the audience realizes they're witnessing television history. But she's not done yet. Before she can leave, she turns back to face Jimmy one more time. "But before I go, let me leave you with something to think about. Tonight, your audience got to see exactly who you really are. They saw how you treat people who don't look like you when you think you have power over them. They saw how you react when someone challenges your narrow worldview." Jimmy's sitting there, completely frozen. His mouth is slightly open. His hands are gripping the armrests of his chair, and he looks like he's having an out-of-body experience. This is probably the first time in his entire career that a guest has walked out on him, and it's happening in front of a live studio audience and television cameras. Zendaya continues, "What's really sad is that you had an opportunity tonight to have a real conversation about important issues. You could have listened. You could have learned something. Instead, you chose to be dismissive, condescending, and frankly pretty revealing about your own biases." The audience is completely silent now, hanging on every word. You can see people in the front row with their phones out, recording everything. This is going to be all over social media within minutes. Jimmy's PR team is probably already drafting apology statements. She looks directly into the camera, speaking to the viewers at home now. To everyone watching, especially young people, who might be facing similar challenges in their own lives, remember this: you don't have to accept disrespect just because someone has a platform or thinks they have power over you. Your worth isn't determined by other people's limited understanding of your value. Jimmy finally finds his voice, but it comes out as a weak stammer. "Zendaya, wait, I think there's been a misunderstanding here." But she holds up her hand to stop him. "No misunderstanding, Jimmy. You were very clear about your feelings. You questioned my qualifications, you dismissed my experiences, and you suggested that my success is somehow illegitimate. Those weren't misunderstandings. Those were choices." She starts walking toward the exit, but then she pauses and turns back one more time. The entire studio is holding its breath. You know what the really ironic part is, Jimmy? You're worried about political correctness and diversity quotas, but you're the one who's become irrelevant. While you're sitting here clinging to outdated ideas about who deserves success, the world is moving forward without you. That line hits like a thunderbolt. You can see it in Jimmy's face that he knows she's right. His ratings have been declining. Younger audiences are turning to different forms of entertainment, and his brand of comedy is starting to feel stale and out of touch. Zendaya just put into words what everyone in the industry has been thinking, but nobody has been brave enough to say. The audience starts clapping again, but this time it's not scattered or confused. It's a unified, sustained applause that builds and builds. People are standing up, cheering, and some are even crying because they're witnessing someone speak truth to power in the most elegant way possible. Jimmy tries one last desperate move. Zendaya, come on, sit back down. Let's talk about this like adults. But his voice sounds pleading now, almost pathetic. He's gone from being the person in control to being the one begging for attention. Zendaya shakes her head with a slight smile. Jimmy, I am talking about this like an adult. An adult who knows her worth and won't compromise it for anyone's entertainment. An adult who understands that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. She heads toward the exit again, and this time she doesn't stop. The audience's applause follows her all the way to the door. Just before she leaves, she turns back one final time, not to Jimmy, but to the audience. Thank you all for being here tonight. You witnessed something important. You saw what happens when someone refuses to accept being diminished. I hope you remember this moment, and I hope you apply it to your own lives. And with that, she's gone. The studio doors close behind her. And suddenly, the reality of what just happened hits everyone. Jimmy is left sitting alone at his desk, in front of a live audience, with cameras rolling, and absolutely no idea what to do next. The audience is still buzzing with energy, but now they're looking at Jimmy expectantly. He's supposed to be the host, the one who guides the show, but he's completely lost. His writers are probably screaming suggestions into his earpiece, but he looks like he can't hear anything over the sound of his own career potentially crashing down around him. He tries to make a joke to lighten the mood. Well, that was intense, he says, with a nervous laugh. But nobody laughs with him. The audience just stares at him in uncomfortable silence. Some people are already getting up to leave. Jimmy realizes he has to say something more substantial. Look, I want to apologize if anyone was offended by tonight's interview. That wasn't my intention. But even his apology sounds hollow and insincere. He's not apologizing for what he said or did. He's apologizing for people being offended by it. One person in the audience actually boos him. Then another. Within seconds, there are scattered boos throughout the studio. Jimmy's own audience is turning against him. The producers are frantically signaling to go to commercial, but the damage is already done. Jimmy tries to regain some control. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our musical guest. But as the cameras cut away, you can see the defeat in his posture. He slumps in his chair, runs his hands through his hair, and looks like a man who just realized he made a huge mistake. The story ends with Jimmy sitting alone at his desk, the audience filing out, and the knowledge that this interview will be replayed, analyzed, and discussed for years to come. Zendaya walked out with her dignity intact and her message clear. Jimmy was left with nothing but the consequences of his own actions. So what do you think? Was Zendaya right to walk out, or should she have stayed and tried to work things out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we've got more Hollywood drama coming your way. Let me know what celebrity confrontation you'd like to hear about next.